My name's ShawNshawN. I do art on ShawNshawN.co and specials on eBay. Today I'm going to review The Upside. So what is The Upside? So Upside is this comedy by Kevin Hart and Bryan Cranston. Kevin plays the part of this down and out, recently parolee. He's got a broken family because he's been in prison for so long, and he's kind of trying to make amends with his family and his son, who are pretty estranged from him because he let him down going to prison and not being there for as a father or as a husband or provider because he's behind on all his payments, right? And then Philip, he plays this part of this really mega rich guy who happens to be quadriplegic, right? So it's this great contrast between this really fully able guy but no money and this completely disabled guy but mega rich. But what's the point of all the money if you're physically disabled, right? So it has this nice contrast between the two. So the story is Philip Lacrosse. He's this mega rich quadriplegic. He's looking for some new help to help him get around. His, basically body assistant. Yvonne, who's his financial assistant from way back when she does an MBA in Harvard and so forth, played by Nicole Kidman. She's his financial assistant, and she's kind of vetting all the candidates for him with him. Dell shows up by accident. He thinks he's showing up for a janitor position. He's like, what the hell is this, right? And he's just trying to get a last signature on his parole card so he can prove that he's looking for work. And so he actually gets offered the job because Philip's feeling very flippant that day. He wants to change of pace, right? He's tired of all these qualified people, and he's done with life anyway, so he's like, whatever, who cares who the guy is, right? So he hires him. Nicole says, no. Yvonne says, don't hire him at all. He's going to be terrible, which he is, on his resume. But they end up having this really strong bond because of this really high contrast of, Dell being locked up and not, he's also trapped, and Philip is trapped in his mind with it, no body, and this guy's trapped without any job potential. So there's this really nice bonding if you think about it in that terms. All right, so they bond really close, and then of course there's kind of a breakdown, and Dell gets fired, Yvonne gets fired, and this guy's at this wit's end, and then at the end Dell kind of comes together and saves the day, right? Kind of your classic formula, right? Like meet, really distrust, bond, and then break apart, and then come back together, right? So the really challenge for this movie is one of the actors is quadriplegic, so he can only use his face. He can't even use his hands, can't use his legs. Not to say anything against those type of people, but it's going to be very hard to come across on film as believable and exciting, because it's going to be like, well, this guy can't do anything. How are you going to make it exciting? But there is quite a lot of action in there. There's kind of a car chase. There's some flying around. So pretty kind of cool stuff they add in there to give it that little bit of action sequence, but it's mostly a dialogue film, of course. The nice thing they do is from beginning and end, they kind of sew that together about how Philip becomes an accident, and he kind of overcomes a little bit about what happened to his body. So that's kind of a nice crux, putting those two pieces together. They don't resolve like his sorrow for his wife really, or there's also this kind of under the covers, like, is he attracted to Yvonne or not? So that's kind of a fun element they have there. She plays kind of this starchy really character. I mean, these people exist that help the mega rich, and they're super overqualified, and they have MBAs and bachelors, and these mega rich people just hire these people, which is a complete waste of their talent. But these people exist in real life that help out these mega rich people. So what was the improvements for the film? So I thought the timing is a little long. It's like 2 hours something. Really, if it's a comedy, an hour and a half is fine. I don't know why these movies keep adding 30 minutes on it. It's like if you're doing, I don't know, say Schindler's List, that's good for 2 hours, right? There's a lot of drama, a lot of ugh. But this is just a light comedy, so it really doesn't need 2 hours. It's nicer an hour and a half. Maybe because I'm older and I just like don't want to stand and have to pee forever, but I'm just like, what's the point, right? So I think they could have edited the film down like at least 10-15 minutes. One of the things they did is they have this car chase in the beginning to introduce the kind of film, and then they have it again at the end. It's like, you don't need that car chase till the end anyway. It kind of ruins the climax of the whole movie. So it's like, there's no point to that. You could have just had that at the very end. It would have been nice, and there's no reason. I mean, Del Scott, the character as this parole guy, I think what they should have shot if they wanted to use the same time is show him getting out of prison, physically unlocking the bars, and all that sequence. It really gives the thing that he's a parolee, right? They didn't show that, so it's always, in a film, you always want to visually show what happens, right? So if you would have had him physically come out of prison, take off the clothes, put his clothes back on, and be like, breath of fresh air, and then say like, hey, 6 weeks later, blah, 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 he's struggling to get around and have his old drug buddies and old con artists kind of try to hook him up. I think that would have been a stronger intro to like, hey, I'm an ex-con, just show you're an ex-con. Don't say I'm an ex-con, right? That would have added 5 more minutes to the film, but they could have cut some other parts, I think. Another thing I think they could have done is they kind of skim a little bit about what Philip's former life before he became quadriplegic. They show like just little glimpses. I think they should have put a little more meat to that. So one act could have been just Del Scott, his development. That would have been Act 1. Act 2 would have been kind of how they bond together. In Act 3, they do this, but they should have covered more on Philip. I think it would have been a much stronger film as far as what kind of person he was before the accident, why he's so depressed, because then you really clicks. I mean, everyone would be depressed if they lost all their limbs, but if you show like how physical the guy was, and they do that a little bit, but it would have been really exciting, like how he raced all these fancy cars and, you know, all the glamour days. That really kind of puts it in stone. I mean, everyone identifies with having a fast car versus not having a piece of junk. So, but the show, it kind of really puts it into thing, and then how he's put into the chair, and you know how he wakes up a little bit more. I think that would have been really juicier, and just skim back a little bit more of the Kevin Hart part. That would have been really more of a crux of the film. I think it would have came together really nice. And Kevin Hart, you know, everyone goes there for the movie for Kevin Hart, of course, but that part really needs to be like juicy, meaty, and it's a little bit, you know, just a little bit light. So what was great about this film was, you know, obviously Kevin Hart is a comedian. He's really good. I think he's stronger in movies like, say, Jumanji, when he's paired against another comedic, like The Rock. You know, he's really playing back and forth, and Jack Black, and there's this really fun dynamic. Or Night School, where he's with Tiffany Haddish, and it's back and forth. And I mean, comedies play better with more comedic actors, right? You know, some of the better Eddie Murphy movies, it's the same thing when he was paired with what's that guy's name? Hall? I can't remember anymore. Anyway, when they kind of had the family and they had like 6 parts and whatever, and they all played the same part. That was really awesome, right? So same thing with Kevin Hart. You know, he's a comedian. He naturally can play comedian. Obviously, he's trying to stretch out his roles to more kind of this is more of a drama film. So he does that, but he's relying on his comedy. So if you're relying on your comedy, you're not really playing a dramatic part in a way. But, you know, it works. I mean, Kevin Hart, you go there for Kevin Hart. The one role that was really nice is it's a minor supporting actress, which was Juliana Margulies, and she plays the love interest, Philip, who's, you know, wheelchair bound, and he's been writing her all these letters, but he hasn't called her or met her in person because he's like, no, I have a wheelchair, there's no point. So he's just kind of carrying on this pen pal relationship, and then Kevin Hart says like, hey, screw that, dude, let's call her up, and they get a date. And so when they show up, she shows how difficult it is to interact with this kind of a person. They do a little bit, you know, like the hot dog stand and some other scenes with public people that you meet just right off the bat, and they're kind of uncomfortable around the wheelchair people. But this is really interesting because it's a love interest, and she's like, ooh, I don't know, you know, and she really captures that really dicey, very uncomfortable feel that people that haven't been exposed to these type of people or people with disabilities, they're going to be like, ooh. So this is really, I kind of like this part of the film. I think other people would maybe find that offensive because like, oh, come on, she'd be fine. But you know, in the reality, I don't think she would be fine exactly. So I really like that part of the film. I think that really crystallizes the character of Philip, like how he's trapped in his body. So that's a really solid part. But I think it could have contrasted that better with his physical life before, and then this. It would have been a much better, like, But overall, maybe with his wife relationship too, that's really not there. So that would have been really great to develop, 5-10 minutes and then cut back somewhere else. Probably more on the Kevin Hart stuff. Although Kevin Hart's good, but that should have been, I think, cut back a little bit more. Overall, I kind of like the film. It's pretty fun, lighthearted comedy with some drama to it. They took a challenging topic, which there's one person can't move, and it still works. So I like this film. Give me a thumbs up if you like my review. If you want to subscribe below. And I'll see you in the next movie review. Thanks for watching, guys.